such a transformative event today. Thank you very much, the speakers of the day today. Ms. Shobha Singh, Business Development Director, Oracle. Lokendra Rawat, Strategic Account Leader, Oracle. And our panelists today, Mr. Rajiv Kakar, the founder and former MD and CEO of Dunia Finance. C. Ramanathan Vaidyanathan, Chief Financial Officer, Union Insurance Company. Mr. Anshul Srivasa, the Global Chief Information Officer and Chief Digital Officer, Emirates Post. And Mr. Rahul Mishra, Vice President, Oracle. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invite and being here, the part of this excellent initiative where we talk about the transformation. When we talk about transformation, one thing that always reminds me that business and profession both need to address the changing time. When we talk about the changing time, what the most important thing comes is that how do we keep the pace with the development that's happening around us and within the organization that we are part of, the team that we are part of, the team that we are leading for a great initiative. So transformation is a word towards addressing the change which is impacting not only just organization, but impacting our life, our day-to-day profession, and everything around us. How to treat this change, how to treat this transformation, and how to make ourselves better equipped to address the need of human. As we all know that today, when the COVID hit us, every single thing around us has changed. How many of us were prepared to adapt the things? Although everybody adapted, but it takes the time, took the phases from 1 day to 1 week, or from 1 week to 1 month, or from 1 week, 1 month to 1 quarter or a year for businesses to adapt the changes. Still, a lot of businesses are finding themselves answers that what they shall do next in order to really deal with the situation that arises. So transformation is not just instance-driven exercise, it's a regular part and course of the business that we all are part of. So today, speakers of the day will going to share their experiences, be it with technology or be it as a business in general, that how and what they shall do in order to keep the pace with the ongoing development and ongoing changes into the not only regulations, the business, the economy, the personal life altogether. So I look forward to have a great deal of learning from all the speakers and panelists of the day today. And I would like to also tell you that, our chairman, C. Anish Mehta, could not join today's event because he's traveling, and as we speak, he's taking his flight back to Dubai, and soon he'll be with us, maybe tomorrow. And so I would like to ask our Vice Chairman, C. Sundar Nurani, to give the welcome address. Over to you, C. Sundar Nurani, Vice Chairman, ICI Dubai Chapter.
Thank you, Anurag. Good evening to all. Very happy to see so many people attending this session virtually. Transformation, I don't need to say more about transformation. What is happening here with us today is a transformation. We used to do most of the events physically, but with the help of technology, we are compelled to, continue the normal life through the use of technology. So what is happening is we were not transforming, but the COVID did its own way to transform us, or probably to adapt to the technology. Like most of the children globally are, learning from home, which was never heard of. And most of the people now also working from home and, helping the normal life as usual. Without technology, I don't think we can even imagine the pandemic. So maybe, the 100 years before when it happened, I heard that most of the people were sitting at home without doing any work for a couple of months or years together. But thanks to technology, many people thank our COVID barriers when it comes to, handling the pandemic. Quite often we forget about the role played by the information technology people to address, the communication and various issues. So let us all together thank the information technology people also who enabled us to keep the life as usual. Yes, when we enter the new normal, things will be different. Probably what will happen is there might be hybrid events. People may not do all the meetings in person. Maybe they might do in a the hybrid manner. So I don't want to steal the thunder from our speakers. We have our keynote speaker, Atal Kumar ji, our immediate past president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. We have learned speakers and panelists from UAE as well. So, Chairman Saab, we want to say hello to everyone just for a minute. Although you are traveling, Chairman Saab.
He got dropped off and now I cannot see him there.
Yeah, okay. So without further ado, I would like to again welcome all of you, and thanks to our president, presidents, immediate past presidents of Adlu Kumarji, despite of his busy schedule, he took some time to address this. Digitalization is in his heart. So last year when he was the president, he did so many things which we all could never imagine that our institute will do. Lot of events happened in digital. Lot of challenges were addressed by Atul Kumarji, and with his guidance, I think all the overseas chapters perform very well. Thank you very much, sir. We are very highly indebted to you for your guidance, and your continuous blessing should be always there on all the chapters across the globe. So again, welcome all of you. Anurag, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sindhu Saab. So before I just invite our Treasurer Sri Rankabaji to give the formal introduction of Kumar Gupta ji, I just want to say one thing that I have been delighted, and Chairman and I, Chairman Anish Mehta, and I have been meeting with Kumar Gupta ji on the last event, and the kind of energy that he brings to ICI and the kind of gesture that he has been working with the entire fraternity over 1 year. It is commendable. Thank you, sir, for such a great gesture that you always have, so humble. And now I'll just request our Treasurer, Sri Harikishan Rankabat, to read his formal introduction. Over to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure, privilege, and honor to introduce our keynote speaker, C. Atul Kumar Gupta ji. As you guys are aware that C. Atul Kumar Gupta ji is the past president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He has served the accountancy profession for more than 2 decades, widely respected for his strong organizational skills and deep insight in the affairs of the profession. A commerce and a law graduate by education, served as chairman of Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, Board of Studies, IT Committee, and Indirect Taxes Committee of ICI. Mr. Gupta was the chairman of ICI Research Wing, ICI Accounting Research Foundation, and XBRL India. He is also director of the governing board of Indian Institute of Insolvency Professionals and Registered Valuers Organization. He is also serving various accounting, financial, government, and semi-governmental bodies as chairman and member. List is endless. On international front, he is on the board of IFAC, XBRL International, and South Asian Federation of Accountants, and representing ICI in International Integrated Reporting Council as well. Being thoroughly conversant with the professional concerns and demands of his times, C.A. Gupta has authored many relevant books and published numerous articles in leading newspapers, magazines, and professional newsletters, and delivered lectures in more than 1,500 seminars and conferences. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome C. Atul Gupta ji to deliver his keynote speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Harikishan ji. I believe that all the members are well familiar with each other, so there was no requirement of the introduction, but thanks for your nice gesture and the blessings from each one of you. At the outset, very good evening to all of you, and thanks to the chair of Dubai chapter, Anish Bhai, and the entire management committee members. Even I can recognize our convener, chairman of the Fujairah chapter, Dhaval ji, into this meeting, and all my galaxy of the respected co-speakers and the panelists and the senior members of the profession. Very good evening to all of you, and it's my privilege, and I will say that feeling the humble as well, that after the president term is over, you all are recognizing, and after 8 days, practically after 20th, and I got COVID infected on 13th itself. But thankfully, I'm out of that COVID now. And still, though I'm in a quarantine situation, but nevertheless, got this opportunity to interact with all of you. Friends, I will be running my small PPT, and I am aware about the time that I have to speak for around 17-18 minutes, because we have to finish my talk by 6:30 of yours. Friends, as if we talk about the profession, as rightly mentioned, initiated by Anurag, that it is not a transformation where we are talking about the business only. It is the transformation about the profession. And if I see the totality, it is something about the profession and the business. So there is a transformation which is happening. We are living in a new normal, but there are a lot of new transformation which is waiting as well. So we have to gear ourselves, we have to adapt ourselves in a way that we are ready with that transformation which is on the card. And it should not become a challenge for us. It will become an opportunity for us if we are well aware, well prepared for the same. So as I will start with my deliberation with the Chartered Accountant Preamble only, the motto song of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. That is, the person who is awake when everybody is sleeping is a Chartered Accountant. So it is not only that the Chartered Accountant in that sense that he is a conscious keeper of the society, that he is awake when everybody is sleeping, but he is also awake when everybody is sleeping in sense of visualizing the 10 years down the line. To visualize, to see the vision, to have that vision, and to perceive that what will be the future is something, is the art and the capabilities of a chartered accountant. And I believe that this program will be a milestone in the times to come for all the other programs when we are discussing about the transformation in the business, transformation in the profession per se. So I have prepared a small PPT for the benefit of our colleagues here, and I will try to run through that PPT in a very speedy way, because it is only the 15 minutes which is available for me to deliberate on this particular aspect. So maybe a few seconds you have to bear with me. So I believe that this PPT is visible to everybody.
Yes, sir, visible.
Yeah. So
Yes,
when
sir.
we are talking about the future ready, so the transformation, required at a professional level, the transformation required at the firm's level, and when there is a transformation in the business, how we are ready for the next generation professional. That is something is always that I am discussing, and I will be discussing in this particular activity. Now, friends, when we discuss about the profession of the Institute Chartered Accountants, there are the 5 major aspects which I see that there will be the that will be the new normal in the times to come, and we have to see that how we are transforming ourselves into that particular requirement. The first one is the delimitation of jurisdiction. You will agree with me, when the Sundarji qualified the CA examination, we were reading the law which were having the local jurisdiction, not to talk about the national jurisdiction. For example, the VAT, which is called as sales tax. Now, but today we are living in an era when the 164 countries, including India and Dubai, is following the concept called VAT with the one or the other name. Same way, we have the IFRS, which is being followed. Same way, the international taxation, insolvency, risk management. So what I'm trying to convey you that we are moving into a direction when not only the businesses are disregarding the geographical boundaries, but also it is the profession. So we have to see that the obvious challenges and the opportunities will be there when there will be a globalization of the laws which we are complying with. The second aspect, which is I'm going to discuss, is about the new way of doing business. There were earlier the 5 M's. Now, what is the situation of those 5 M's, and how they are emerging out? What kind of challenges they are creating before all of us? That we need to understand, and we see that how our professional colleagues has to adapt themselves into that kind of a new 5 M's. The third one, which is again on the card, that is the ESG reporting. That is environment, social, and the governance. So there will be a requirement in the times to come. I believe that maybe 2 years down the line, but not only for the sustainable development goals, but also for the environment, social and the governance. There will be a reporting, and even there are the mutual funds which therein we have started the sustainable investment per se. So how the sustainable reporting will be there, that is something the professionals and the business has to undergo with a change. Then there is always the expectation of the society, and last but not the least is the digital disruption, when the routine things, the repetitive things will be outsourced to the systems. The artificial intelligence blockchain will bring a maker checker concept. How we have to transform the profession, it is something that we need to discuss time and again. Now friends, I will be discussing all these 5 areas, and then I will be giving a slide that what is there in the card for the future of this profession. So maybe 2 minutes I will be speaking on all the 5 aspects, and then we will move to the way forward part. Now, the first one, when we are talking about the delimitation of jurisdiction, you will agree with me that today, when we follow the VAT law or a IFRS or even any other law, there are the common preambles, the definitions are common, the preambles are common, and what is happening that the jurisprudence. So one judgment at particular one jurisdiction, for example, the GST. Now in India we are following the GST, but in the Europe it was started way back in 1954 or so. So whenever there are these very certain judgments which define a particular activity, because the preambles are same. So when you are discussing about the obligation to refrain from an act, whether is a supply or not, the commonality between the Europe and the India is there. So the jurisprudence at one location will be useful for the other jurisdiction. Same way, what will happen? The company when a company is there and understanding that the laws are common in one or the other countries, they will go for a geographical advantages. So business will move that, okay, I will have the sales department in Luxembourg and the purchase department in Dubai and like that. So there will be the geographical advantage the companies will be looking for. They will be looking for a globally listing as well. So when they are looking for this kind of environment, certainly our professional colleagues and the service providers has to see that they are also providing the cross-border services by using the IT-enabled services. They have to see that how they will be able to pool the resources, the IT infrastructure, and how they are making the larger firms, the global firms, to cater the society, to cater the new normal. So this is one, that the delimitation of jurisdiction vis-a-vis the after effect of that disregard of the geographical boundaries will not only create the challenges, but also the opportunity for the professional colleagues if they gear themselves for that particular aspect. Now, the second one, which I discussed and I wish to mention about, that is something about a new way of doing business. You will all agree with me that earlier time when we were reading in the management schools or in the CA examination, we were discussing about the 5 M's. That is the man, machine, time, minutes, material, and money. Now, what is the position of this? It was a past and present. But now what is happening, that the man and practically man and the specifically to the certain extent, the machines are being replaced by the bots. So that is the robotic process automations, the bots. So for example, you have an e-invoice system available in the GST. The journal entries can be handled by a bot, which is costing less than $100 in a particular company. Likewise, in case you are having the more and more bots, the time management will be much better as compared to the earlier. Material is being replaced now by the global sourcing, and the money, wherein there was a huge cost of capital when you are offering for a public offer or a debenture or a term loan, is getting replaced by the strategic funding. So the future, the present and the future, which was the past was man, machine, and material and money, the present and the future will be the bots, the global sourcing, and the strategic funding. Now, when you will have this, there will be the obvious benefits, because the society and the industry will go when there will be the obvious benefits will be there. The first benefit, the cost optimization, the time management, then the reducing of the wastage scraps, improving accuracy. So meaning thereby the overall efficiency will improve. And when there will be the overall efficiency which will improve, certainly the professional also need to adapt that changes. So what will happen, that when you have the boats, there are no evidences available, the physical vouchers are not available, you have to change your assurance standards. Same way the disclosure standards. There will be entire reworking when you are looking for a data collection, because the data will not be available as it was available. You need to have a different kind of a presentation and the custodian of the data, the safety of the data. Then the methodology of the audit will also change in this particular environment, and the audit will be more of a commission rather than the omission, because the maker-checker concept will ensure that there will not be any error as far as the routine repetitive activities are concerned. There will be the real-time audit, and we will be doing a cloud-based audit as compared to that today we are doing a physical audit. So what I'm trying to convey, my friends, here, that when we are looking for a transformation and when we are looking for a new way of doing business, looking into the transformation in these 5 M's, there will be the obvious requirement the professional need to adapt along with the service provider to be ready for the new normal in the times to come. Now, friends, when we go to the third part, that is ESG, that is the environment, social, and governance. Everybody is aware that is so much important. It is coupled with the sustainable development goals as well. So when we talk about the carbon emissions, we talk about the renewable energies are being used. We talk about the human capital. When we talk about the business ethics. Now, these were the things which were being discussed on a subjective analysis, but there was no objective capturing of the data in relation to these aspects were not there. But time has come when you will find that there will be the data collection for all these activities as well. So how much carbon emissions is being there? What is the impact on the society? And that has to be reported in the financial statement by capturing the non-financial data. So that is something that very, very important is on the card. So there will be the source, there will be the, I will say, the review, there will be the how this data can be used and how the data quality is there, is something the professional has to work. So there will be a lot of things which will be there for the professionals, that there will be. So I used to say that the new age jobs. So what will happen the moment you will have this kind of activity, there will be a completely the new set of job which will be there for the professional. But in case we gear up ourselves, we understand that what will be the requirement, how the data will be captured, what is the new standards which are coming, what are the reporting requirements which is coming, that if we will understand, certainly it will be an opportunity for us rather than becoming a challenge, because everybody is aware that tomorrow there will be a requirement of a sustainable investments. So what will happen? The company A, which is reporting on the ESG, will be treated as a sustainable investment as compared to the company B, which is not reporting on the ESG. So what will happen? That there will be a sustainable investment. In India, I was discussing that one company already launched a particular mutual fund which relates to that. Okay, if you are, say, for example, you are going for an equity fund, you are going for a debt funds, you are going for a government security funds. Now there is a new concept which is emerging that, okay, this is a mutual fund relates to the sustainable investment. So what will happen? That the more and more acceptability of those funds will be there. Nobody wants to become a Nokia. Nobody wants to become a HMT or ambassador. Everybody wants to be a sustainable or a sustainability should be there. So that is something is on the card. Now for that, will be very, very important for all of us that, okay, how to have the data available for that. So I'm talking about the ESG specifically also right now about the ESG, that when we are talking about the ESG, the data will be the key, as rightly mentioned, that the tomorrow the water will not be the new oil, it will be the data which will be the new oil. So how you will be able to acquire the data, how you will analyze the data, how you will create the data, how you will store the data, how you will use the data, is something that professionals need to learn, because ultimately the data will be the new oil, and that how we are reporting this data to the financial statement, that is something a new age jobs which will be emerging for our professional colleague. So there will be the structured data, there will be the unstructured data. How to use this unstructured data into the organization will be a very, very important aspect that our professional colleagues has to handle. So there are the n number of, like I have the few slides, but I am aware about the time constraint. So I'm not discussing the each and every slide, but I'm trying to convey my friends here that when we are talking about the ESG, when we are talking about the new way of doing business, it is very, very important that we should have the structured data. We should have all these data available in a proper, I will say, the architecture is there, modeling is there, the proper data security is there. So there is a complete line of business, line of profession which is emerging out when we are talking about the data. Now, friends, I will move to the fourth pillar of my discussion, is about the digital disruption. The World Economic Forum issued a report and mentioned that by 2022, yes, I'm aware because of the COVID-19, there will be a little bit delayed into that particular process, but it is not again a very good news, because the World Economic Forum says that by 2022, there will be a 75 million job loss. And if you will see the 1, 2, and 7, that relates to our profession. But at the same time, they mentioned that there will be the 133 million new jobs will be there. And number 1 is again related to our profession, that is data analytics. So when days were gone, when we talk about the ABCD,
and the A stands for apple and B stands for ball. I used to say today A stands for artificial intelligence, B stands for blockchain, and what will happen with the A and B and robotic. So the artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the robotic process automation will outsource the routine and the repetitive things, and it will be the only job which require the wisdom which will be there with the profession. So it is very important that to have that kind of a skepticism, that kind of a wisdom, that we should be doing the mastery on the C and D, that is cybersecurity and the data analytics. So there is a technology which is emerging out. So what to talk about the routine technology? Now the future of the technology is the Li-Fi, the quantum computing, the brain-computer interface. So that is something when the doctor's operations are being handled by the bots. What to talk about our professional activity, our routine professional activity. So it is very, very important for our colleagues, for our profession to see that along with the business, how we are transforming ourselves with the changing time. Friends, there are some other slides that how the future audit team will be there and what will be the reporting requirement will be there. But I will be summarizing my deliberation on last two slides, that how to start with, what will be the new vision, what will be the new transformation which will be required. So what will be the new sun, that okay, we have to start with a new career. So this is practically the second last slide where I wish to share with you that these are the 9 emerging aspects into our profession. First one, that there will be more talk on the CAM, that is the Key Audit Matters SA701, that how you are reporting, how you are looking into the governance part, that how the true and fair will be looked into. The second one is something about the data analytics. So data analytics will be the very, very important job which will be there in our profession. The third one is a reporting for the public sector adoption of the accounting. So there will be the huge opportunity for our profession when we talk about the public sector. Forensic, that is the audit will be tomorrow, will not be of a omission but of a commission. So it will be more the investigation approach rather than the assurance approach. So the forensic investigation will be there in the times to come. Then again, you have to move from a standardization to the adaptation. So it will not be okay rule based something like that. It will be more of a advisory role which will be there for the profession. The sixth one is the audit quality indicators. That is something that each one of a professional has to see, that whether my firm is there on the audit quality indicators. The ICI also established the Center for Audit Quality. There are a number of other jurisdictions who are working on this. So something we need to see that how we are meeting the criteria of the audit quality indicators. As I mentioned, the next one is a non-financial reporting, as I discussed with the ESG and the sustainable development goals. And last but not the least, the tax control activity, which is a conventional area of our profession. So what I'm trying to convey you that this is something, a future of this profession, that yes, these are the 9 important areas where the profession will be there. There will be the new age jobs. We have to see that whether my skill sets are there to match with that kind of a new age job, or we have to reskill my skill. So we have to see that what will be the future age jobs, what is the skill required, whether I possess that skill or not. And in case there is a gap, I have to reskill myself to meet that requirement which will be there. Friends, I am just requesting all of you, please don't feel that, okay, this is something Atul is talking about 10 years or 20 years ahead. No, it is only the 5 years I can say you that will be on the card. And will be that we have to see that we should remain in the value system. We should not be becoming the redundant in the times to come. So we have to gear up ourselves. But my only last request to my all council colleagues when we are talking about the transformation is something that we need to develop this strong leadership skill. Time has gone when we are doing a single window services. No, it will be a divisionalization basis. You should not be the jack of all. You should be the master of one, but at the same time, you should be providing the different specialization under a single umbrella. That is something that we need to aspire for. We need to see that how we are competent into the digital, how mature we are into the digital competency, how the best of the code of ethics and the global developments are there in the profession, how we can develop the larger firms, and how we can have an international footprints. That is something that we need to see, and that is the ultimate requirement of this particular profession, as well as the time when we are discussing all these aspects. So friend, this is all from my side. As I committed myself that I will be completing my talk by 8 o'clock as per the scheduled time. The only point which I wish to convey my friends here, that as I mentioned, that the profession of the chartered accountants and as being given in the motto, is a person who is awake when everybody is sleeping. that it is very, very important for us to see that the 10 years down the line, what will be the requirement, what will be the new skill sets which will be there, what kind of a reporting will be there, what kind of a jobs will be there, and how I am myself is empowering myself, how I am building the capacity to meet the challenges, convert them into the opportunity, and should remain in the important constituent of the entire value system. So this is all from my side, and best wishes to the Dubai chapter and all my colleagues who are participating. Thanks once again to Anurag ji, Nurani ji, Sundar ji, and even everybody who from the management committee and other who are participating in this particular talk. Thank you.
Atulji, thank you so much for your insight and the passion that with which you speak, and the kind of the holistic view that you provided on the entire concept is so great, and that's the reason, like I ask all our members, can we have a round of applause by showing the sign for the past president, sir. And thank you very much, sir, for sparing the time, and I do understand the kind of situation at the moment is in, and we wish you a very well recovery soon on this. And I'm sure, like you are a very strong person and a fighter altogether, so definitely this will be just a matter of few days, and you'll be well soon, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invite and being here with us and sharing your valuable knowledge with our members. Thank you, sir. And this is a small certificate of appreciation from all of us for you, sir.
Thank you, Atul sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I would like to ask our executive committee member, CA Sangeeta Nahar, to formally introduce our panelist of the day and speaker.
Hello. Hello, dear members, esteemed speakers. Hello from Bengaluru, the Silicon Valley of India. We have had our first heavy rains yesterday night, and the weather is really awesome. The temperature has dipped. It's indeed my pleasure to introduce a very worthy panel and the moderator. They will take us through digital transformation, cost optimization, and finance executive do it now. We have in the panel the Oracle team, which consists of Rahul Mishra, Lokendra Rawat, and Shobha Singh, who's our moderator. We also have Rajiv Kakar, Anshul Srivasa, and Ramanath Vaidyanath. I will start my introductions with the Oracle team. I'm going to start with Rahul. Rahul Mishra is Vice President of Oracle, responsible for Oracle's cloud applications, growth, revenue, helping customers transform their business on Oracle clouds. He's built customer advocacy, member of Oracle's executive management in ECE MEA region. He's personally engaged with a number of Oracle customers across industries and focuses his organization on the primary goal of continually delivering value to customers, thereby helping them achieve their goals for business successes. He provides executive sponsorship to key customers in the region. It is important for him that Oracle customers receives the highest level of commitment and service at all levels of engagement. So that's Rahul Mishra for you. He has been with Oracle since 2006, engineering graduate with an MBA. We then have Lokendra Rawat, who's a strategic accounts leader for ECE MEA Oracle. He is he's helping strategic Oracle customers in the region to create a cloud digital transformation journey. Prior to his current role, he was the consulting director in region, responsible for the delivery of all the projects in the region. He's a certified chartered accountant with overall finance and IT industry experience of around 22 years. He is a winner of multiple awards at Oracle for consistent success in project delivery activities. We then have Shobha Singh, who's a business development director. She will be a moderator along with Anurag and Jay. Shobha Singh is a familiar and powerful speaker who manages to get across a point in a very interesting manner. Shobha, I'm one of your fans. I really love the way you present you get across your point to us. With a career of 18 years plus with global tech firms in a journey of 4 years with Oracle, Her current responsibility in Oracle is to help build a transformational journey for large customers in regions by understanding visions and business challenges, and responsible for assigned strategic initiatives in ECE MEA region. Prior to Oracle, she was the key account director with Microsoft India, managing India's largest banks, that is State Bank of India globally, instrumental in SBI transformation journey to cloud. Her longest stint was with Hewlett Packard, leading the enterprise business team, managing large customers like Tata Group, Birla, Reliance, along with large global customers. So members, this is the Oracle team for you in the panel. We then have Rajiv Kakar.
Sangeeta ji, we will stop here. We'll go with the session first with Oracle, and then we'll bring the panelists on board.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay. Over to you, Shobha.
Okay. Thank you, Sangeeta. And what a inspiring session from Atul Gupta. I think I was lost completely. I mean, after a very, very long time, I've really heard each and every word for 25 to 30 minutes where you can't just leave the screen and you can't leave the, your mic. So thank you, Atul Gupta. I think very, very inspiring. And each and every word which you said and you gave an advice, it is not only for ICI executives. I think it is very applicable to all of us, right? With this, I would like to start my session. Me and Lok are going to co-present. Just let me know if you're able to see our screen.
It's visible. And now it's on presentation mode as well. Thank you.
Okay. Right. So thank you, ICI, for a continued partnership. I think it is a 3-year plus partnership, especially with Dubai. And I would really like to thank you for inviting us, Oracle, as a speaker and share our thoughts during the session as well as panel. Thank you once again. As in the previous keynote, Dr. CA Atul Gupta mentioned, finance role is changing, right? And this is something, if you remember, me and Lokendra presented to you in May, when we were just 2 months or 3 months in pandemic. That time when Anish asked us to just present it, what are our thoughts from technology point of view? We maintain the same thing. There is role of finance has changed significantly. All the roles have changed, but role of finance has become much more powerful. And now is the time when we are moving into 2021. We have already are in month of February. We need to make big, bold moves. Now, safe harbor statement, all our comments, all our presentation are only for the purpose of information. Why are we talking about change, right? And if I say the speed of change, the significant speed of change, we said 6 months back or 7 months back, the role is changing. The role of CFO and his office is changing significantly. But now, 1 year into pandemic, we all have witnessed the finance office, which was earlier at some point of time, a trusted advisor to just finance group, maybe all the finance executive, be it the accountants, be it the finance controller, be it the budgeting planning managers, they all were trusted advisor for CFO, who in turn was a trusted advisor for CEO. But today, this role has become the powerhouse of business, right? You are playing a very dominant role, especially in this COVID economy and the growth to come. And this role is no more a silo role, but it has become a co-creator of business strategy and transformation. This is what we are going to cover briefly today. It was said there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen. I think this is so true. There are weeks where the entire decades have happened. And most importantly, that these weeks have brought the acceleration, the way the individuals, the way the organization are adapting the lifestyle. Earlier, if it was before pandemic, if we had to say, okay, we want to hold a webinar, there used to be hardly 10 people. Okay, why not to come in physical world? If you tell a student, I remember in the student, like my children, they study in a school where once in a year, there used to be a flip day. Oh, it used to be a havoc, but today that flip day has become 365 days flip day. But we have learned to live indoor. We have learned how to wear masks. We have learned how to survive individually and as an organization. And most importantly, we have learned how to accelerate with the adoption of technology. We are comfortable with online buying. And when we as consumers and customers are very comfortable, so has the organization accelerated their digital plan to serve us as a customer, right? I was just talking, I mean, I can just give you a very small example. Just day before yesterday, when we were doing a quick dry run, sync up for this session, Anish said that, your chairman said, he has bought a bag of rice from Amazon. I was like, okay. And he said it was much cheaper, and more than cheaper, it was much comfortable. In today's time, you don't want to step out. That is what technology has brought for you. Convenience at your time, at your pace. And in this unprecedented times, I'm sure you all are going to agree with me, technology will play a very, very pivotal role going forward. Change is constant. It will keep on happening, either in terms of disruption or in terms of any kind of big change it will come. Adaptation and agility will be the key. Disruptive events are not new. This I had covered earlier also, but we as a business, we all are quite used to it, right? Be it dot-com bubble, just a decade back was banking crisis, or long back, which we have not witnessed, is World War II. But one thing is which is very certain in any disruptive event is they lead to some kind of a reformation, they lead to some kind of a learning, and this all leads us to an opportunity. This is exactly what in our earlier keynote, Dr. C.A. Gupta said, that this is the time, don't miss a crisis. This is the time, there is an opportunity lying to reskill, upskill, and then move for the growth. However, this time is very different from the other crisis. How it is different? This pandemic has brought a high uncertainty, which has caused us. This has also impacted different industries, but across the globe. Some are positive, highly impacted in positive manner. Some are negative, maybe like airlines, which are very deeply impacted. Some which are very highly positive are, let's say, essential goods. The third, where it is different, is this pandemic has brought the highest unemployment in last few decades to be seen. And when we are talking about this high uncertainty, the impact across the industries, across the sectors, and the highest unemployment, this is also leading to highest stimulus by the governments to be released to face or to manage this crisis. Now, these are the macro level impacts which we are talking. But how these macroeconomic impacts are leading to driving a very high uncertainty, even at a micro level in an organization also, right? Let's take an example. When it is a high unemployment, unemployment leads to impact on the demand. It leads to a very low consumer purchasing power. Then in such times, how will the organizations really build their forecast? How do you manage your inventory? How do you manage your supply chain in such uncertain times? One of the keys which we all have learned in past 12 months is building resilience. Resilience is mainly from the short-term perspective. The impact of this crisis was not only for weeks, months. Today we are 1 year into it, but still it could be for years also. We don't know. In my personal understanding, if I have to say, have we really understood the impact of this crisis? I don't think so. We felt in month, like sometime by September, vaccine is around the corner. So fine, we will be fine. Everything will be back to normal in terms of some kind of a recovery and growth. But today, even with vaccine, there is a shortage of vaccine. The new strains have come in. Again, we are into the lockdown condition. So we don't even know till the crisis is over that have we understood the impact. So uncertainty continues. How do you as an individual or as a professional manage this continued disruption? The only part is that we have to learn how to face this uncertainty. And one thing, and most importantly, how to prepare to rebound in this uncertain time and grasp the opportunity. One thing, again, will be very important is technology will be at the heart of any business resilience plan. I'm again trying to stress this, it will play a very important pivotal role. It will not be the only role, but it will play a very important role. A quick one, you all have heard it from me itself, but you must have read it earlier also, the 5-hour horizon, which McKinsey had put it, but I'll just quickly put a perspective to it. we have surpassed the resilience stage. That is mainly the survival, right? Survival is where we learn in any kind of a crisis like this, how to really survive. As an organization, what we did we made a quick shifts in, okay, if a supply is not available, I'll just quickly renegotiate and bring the supply somewhere else. Or if there is a process which is not very automated, I'll quickly do some kind of an automation and then just run the flow. That is something short-term adjustments. That is what resilience or the survival, mainly to manage the liquidity and cash. However, we need to now, when we are moving from resilience to return to growth, we need to look at what to do now and to maintain a balance with what to do next. And with this, we need to pivot towards business resilience and we need to move forward. Every organization will write their own playbook, be it with the short term, medium term, or long term. Looking at what are sustainable measures. How do I look in this remote environment, which will always be now, looks like will be a hybrid environment going forward. What we have done is, like we are working with you, with ICI, globally we work with a lot of large CFO associations. We are talking with a lot of CFOs, big fours. We're just trying to give a little bit of framework. What is the business continuity and sustainability plan for resilience and growth? The three key important aspects of any plan will be employees, customers, and suppliers, which I prefer to call it as a partner. Employees, when pandemic started, that is the time the short-term goal for the organization is look at the critical functions, look at the employees who can do these critical functions and just run the show, to run the operations. However, now is the time you need to relook at where are my employees, how do I need to reskill, upskill their functions and realign these skill sets in this remote workforce environment, right? The second is customers. Customer behavior has changed big time. I gave you an example of online. Today, we are very, very conveniently, we want to do everything online. We love to shop only online because that's the way we have learned it and that has become a new habit for us, right? How we as an organizations, the biggest challenge for us as an organization is how to reach to these customers. How do I really understand what my customers are thinking? And most importantly, customers have become very, very digital savvy. Just take an example of online retail or the education sector, which is fully online. How do I reach these customers? And most importantly, how do I give an experience when this customer reaches to me? I give via whichever digital medium, I give them a unified experience in this multi-environment, right? The third is suppliers, or as I said, I would like to call them as partners. How do I see who are the partners who will be able to partner with me for running my operations? Are they the right partners? You might have to relook at your contracts, you might have to renegotiate, and you have to really challenge your conventional thinking. Connected planning, you might have to build the scenarios, different scenarios, right? And this all cannot be done manually. Everything needs to move digitally. Digitally means, as C. Atul Kumar said, in fact, I learned it, A, B, C, D, artificial intelligence, right? How do you really see that how the emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT, they really help you in this connected planning. You have a data, which is also one of the very key pillars. How do you really use the insight data, which is structured and unstructured data, and use in a connected planning? And here, I'll again like to stress, finance will play the most important role. Reason being, you are the one who is in the powerhouse, which is connected with the HR. Where are my resources? How do I plan the resources in the best of environment, the worst of environment, and how do I plan it? And most importantly, how am I agile enough in case of any course correction required, or be it in terms of budgeting, or be it in terms of supply chain, etc. Communication will become one of the key aspects where you are transparent right from the board member till your all employees, where you're clearly communicating the vision, the objectives, and then you leave the critical functions, how they need to be delivered. And the last part is monitor. How do you monitor? Because monitor is not about looking at what is happening from the scenario building from employee, customer, or supplier part. Monitor is in these uncertain times where the situation is so volatile, how do I make a course correction so quickly? For this, you need a real-time information, right? And this all can be done only when your entire systems, entire organization is on a digital forums. Just a quick one. Entire plan will be built on three fundamental aspects. One is technology, one is people, which is the skills we call it, and the culture, right? If these three fundamental aspects of the organization is taken care, then the business transformation and the digital transformation can be very successful. What we did is, moving next is, this is something which we are giving as our views. But now I want to present to you a real facts. Oracle has partnered with MIT globally, and we did a survey with the help of MIT, including Middle East, where we interviewed many C-level executives, right? Now, what are the C-level executives they said? Let me present the facts and figures. And this is quite latest, just a month and a half old. One is before 80%, 90% of the executives who were interviewed, they said that the fallout of the COVID will be that there will be a fundamental shift in the way the businesses are being run for them, right? Now, 80% of the businesses, they said they will be making a big strategic moves. Now, big strategic moves is not about making, as I said, a little bit shift or adjustments. Big strategic moves is you might go into right mergers. You might need to look at new acquisitions. You might need to look at new business models, right? A fundamental shift in how the business is being done today. And this can be done. And again, finance will play a very important role because you need data and a right perspective of data, which can give you right insights to help you decision making. The second is 50% of the executives, they said new business models, right? New business models will be there. So what does this new business model means? New services, new market growths, or maybe it is a combination of launch of new products or the in the new markets, right? It could be with the cost optimization. The third is 42% of the businesses and the executives, they said they would like to automate and bring a transparency in their cybersecurity, security, and compliance. And the objective will be improved risk management. And the fourth is 58% of the executives and the businesses, they said they will be making decision on their business plan, which will be led by cloud-based technologies. Now, I want to make one, comment over here. I didn't put one percentage, which is 39% of the executives, they feel these four big, bold moves might have a blocker if there is a lack of budget and a reskilled employees or the skill sets. That is the 2 points which they said that could be a hindrance to achieve these big, bold moves. Now let's look at what this MIT review or the survey said it for finance perspective, for the finance executives. Finance executives, and you might notice that the four big bold moves for finance are somewhere in line with business. As I said, finance is a powerhouse of the business transformation. The first is business model innovation. The second is merger and acquisition. Third is automated close. And the fourth is risk intelligent culture. I'll stop here to really explain in details. I would like to invite my colleague, CA Lokendra Rawat, to explain you in details. Lokendra, over to you.
Well, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I hope you guys are all staying safe, sound. You guys have all started taking your vaccines as well. And I also want to thank Mr. Syed Atul for that fantastic presentation that he did. Before I start off with the presentation, I just wanted to give you a context of what we presented last time. If you recollect, we were in the midst of COVID. We were in the midst of a huge disruption at that point in time. And at that point in time, most of the big research reports were actually advising CFOs and CXOs on how to manage the business during these uncertain times. And if you remember the slide deck that we presented, one of the key takeaways of that particular presentation was a McKinsey report, which concentrated more on cash preservation, liquidity maintenance, and more importantly, only concentrating on your working capital requirements. That means put off all kind of capex projects, put off all kind of divestments, do not concentrate on long-term planning, concentrate more on short-term planning. So that was the key takeaway of what we presented during that particular presentation, which was absolutely attuned towards the times that we were facing at that point in time. But having now seeing a change in the way the COVID figures are now changing, given the fact that vaccines have started coming into the market, given the fact that markets are now starting upswing. What we've now done is we've tried to give you a perspective of what is it that most of the big business moves are actually concentrating on. So what you're going to be seeing in the next few slides is an underlying theme which has been taken from, as Shobha rightly pointed out, some research reports, MIT data, and more importantly, what is it that big Fortune 500 companies are actually talking of and concentrating on as a post-COVID scenario, which means that so-called cash preservation, that so-called working capital preservation that most of the companies were actually facing or were trying to capitalize on during COVID. What are they trying to do with all of this money? And that is what we're going to be presenting in the next 4 slides. It goes without saying, finance will continue to play a dominant role here because majority of this is to do with big, bold moves. Majority of this is also to do with the fact that this is a time where never has any CEO thought of the importance of having a CFO advisor in terms of how to tide over these times. So let me actually take you to all these 4 big bold moves. Again, just emphasizing, these are actually a collection of what is being reported in the market as of now. And this is why we are advising most of our customers also that this is what they should be looking for in the next 2 to 3 quarters to actually ensure that the business models are not getting disrupted again. Shobha, next slide, please. So the first important one, Shobha, next slide, please. The first important thing which we are noticing right now is majority of the businesses are actually embracing a new business model innovation, which means most of the businesses are actually trying to ensure that out of COVID, they start understanding the customer preferences and the patterns better. So having now seen, a culture of working from home, having seen a culture of, trying to order things online, having seen a culture of, having a digital experience on buying and selling, most of the companies have decided to actually re-innovate the business models. And the first point is actually about that, which is rethinking your business model. So now it's very, very clear. Most of the retailers in the region also and worldwide also are actually abandoning, brick and mortar locations, not fully, but they're actually trying to concentrate more and more on e-commerce. Most of the B2B companies are actually now trying to, do more and more online events. Marketing companies are resorting to only online events. Universities have actually started doing online programs as well. So most of these businesses have started looking at different models of reinventing themselves, and this is where a majority of the concentration of the market is at this point in time. And the most interesting trend is on the second point, which is moving away from a product-based revenue model to a service-based revenue model. Now this is very significant given the fact that the top large 4 S&P 500 companies in the world today are only on service-based revenue models. So whether we're talking of Amazon, whether we're talking of Facebook, or even for that matter, companies like Oracle, Microsoft, SAP, we're all actually moving from a product-based revenue model to a service-based model. And this is now resonating in most of the companies worldwide. Even simple things like, gym equipment companies have actually started leasing out their equipment. They're finding recurring revenues on that particular model much more interesting than selling these equipments. Or for that matter, as I said, online university courses, you can actually have recurring revenues on that as well. So what is very important is most of the companies are realizing if you try and sell service-based products now, instead of just selling it as a one-time investment to a particular customer, you are actually giving rise to a complete end of your product-based sales. And that is why most of them are actually moving to a service-based recurring revenue model. The third most important thing is the customer excellence part. More and more companies are actually investing on digital services for the simple reason people like you and me want to have a better digital experience on the internet. So banks, for example, have never spent so much as they've started spending now post-COVID to ensure that the customer experience on their website is fantastic. So it's very, very important to realize here that majority of the people today rate a particular service or rate a particular product, not just on the basis of what they're buying, but they're also now rating this on the basis of what kind of digital experience they have when they actually go into that particular website as well. So you will see simple, customers like, Emirates NBD today. I've been noticing that almost every week you have new features and functionalities being launched on their internet banking these days. So this is where the world is moving towards. Customer excellence is here to stay, and most of the companies have started investing on that. And the last point is actually the acceleration to cloud. So there was a huge amount of resistance, data residencies issues, security concerns, a lot of these concerns that were being spoken of pre-COVID. During COVID, there has been a realization that maintaining your data centers can actually give rise to a lot of disruptions. So why not start acceleration to the cloud? So many companies have actually started the journey towards cloud in a almost post-COVID scenario, and this is one of the major trends that we're observing worldwide as well. So in short, the first very key takeaway, and again, this is, as I said, this is a collection of what the research reports are speaking about. This is a collection of what most of the CXOs are talking of in terms of where they're going to put their money in the next 2 to 3 quarters. What we're observing here is embracing of a business model innovation is here to stay, and this is the first most important investment that most of the CXOs are doing on. Next slide, please. The second most important thing is the usage of that particular cash, which people have been trying to preserve. And one very interesting data point that we've actually noticed is actually about a Reuters report, where more than 1 trillion worth of mergers and acquisitions was reported on the third quarter of 2020. So I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but almost more than 1 trillion mergers and acquisitions worth of mergers and acquisitions have happened in the world in the third quarter of 2020, which was at the time when the first signs of a vaccine started coming into the world. And this is again one of the major trends that we're actually observing at this point in time. Companies are doing two things. A, they're divesting all their non-core assets, they're divesting all their non-profitable assets, and they've actually started looking for assets which can add value to their business. It could be small takeovers, it could be large takeovers, or it could also be something like a simple line of business or a brand being acquired by that particular company. Again, this is a trend that's likely to stay because there are companies which are flush with cash at this point in time. Business is picking up as well. And more importantly, it's important now for companies to maintain their revenue growth by capitalizing on the M&A and divestitures. And one very interesting thing which I wanted to highlight was a particular webinar which was hosted by AICPA CIMA, which is again a body of accountants, where most of the participants, and these were again, chartered management accountants, when they were asked, CFOs, finance professionals, when they were asked in the webinar, where do you think you would be investing in terms of your strategy in the next 1 year? And most of them said, we will be looking for a scenario modeling tool. Now, this is very important because most of the finance professionals have realized that the next 1 year, they would need to actually look at, what kind of new scenarios, what if analysis they should be planning, given the fact that, the business models are now changing, given the fact that, the usage of cash needs to be put into a better usage within the organization. And that's why most of these finance professionals cited that, scenario modeling tool would be one tool they would be looking for investing in the next 1 year of time. So again, just to conclude, capitalization on M&A and divestitures is something that you're going to be hearing a lot in the next 1 year. This is again going to be consuming a lot of the business headlines in the next quarters to come. Next slide, please. All right. So, if you remember in the last session that we had done with you all, we spoke about, IoT, we spoke about AI, we spoke about chatbots. Now, all of these things, were being spoken of at that point in time because people were working from home. There is a realization that, accountants specifically or finance professionals specifically should, be releasing themselves from manual activities. They should be concentrating more and more on automation of processes within the organization. Never has the world felt the need of investing in an automatic closing software as it is being felt at this point in time. The reason being, most of the companies today are suffering from simple things like, closing of months, simple things like, reconciliation of accounts, intercompany reconciliation problems, expense allocation problems. So one of the key takeaways that we're observing right now is most companies today are wanting to accelerate their journey towards automatic closing of their financial statements. This could be a simple baby step that they can take, where simple processes within their organization can be automated. Like simple example, like a consolidation tool to basically consolidate your financial statements across multiple legal entities, or it could be even a simple reconciliation tool which can actually reconcile some of your subledgers with your general ledger. So this is again one very important theme where most of the companies are wanting to invest in the new future. One thing which I wanted to highlight was, if you look at the diagram on the right hand side, the picture on the right hand side, one of the key takeaways based on research reports is that most people are actually trying to find automated closing tools on an integrated platform. So till last year, RPA was the buzz. Most companies were actually investing in third-party RPAs. And now most of the companies are realizing if they have an ERP platform on a separate instance, and if they want a different RPA platform, they have a lot of integration issues. And more importantly, the entire purpose of RPA, which is automated closing of a process or automatic orchestration of a particular process, gets defeated if you do not do this online within your organization. So one of the key takeaways again that we've noticed is most of the respondents are saying if they have to invest on an automatic closing tool, they would do so only and only on an integrated platform, which means your ERP platform, your accounting platform should have an embedded RPA within that particular platform to orchestrate the RPA process. No longer are people wanting to look at third-party tools because, as I said, they're no longer looking at facing these kind of integration issues. Next slide, please, Shobha. And then, of course, the last point is on the risk part. So most of the organizations learning from COVID are wanting to ensure that their risks are digitally managed by their software. So this is one very important trend which is being observed post-COVID as well. Today, CFOs are asking, what are their risks today at this point in time? What is my risk tolerance? Am I prepared? Do I have a collaboration and communication tool within my organization to do that? But most of these CFOs, most of the finance professionals do not know at this point in time what are those tools that they should be investing in so that they can actually look at managing these risks. So simple things like today, when you try and do a wire transfer, many companies today are actually insisting on physical signatures as well, right? So is your organization prepared to actually digitize that signature today? Are there any security tools available that can help you digitize those kind of things in your organization? Think about digitizing these kind of small things within your organization on a platform where all these risks can be managed by the security of that particular platform. It's very important that in a post-COVID scenario, building a risk intelligent culture within your organization is very, very important. Try and accelerate the building of this risk culture, not only from the point of view of SOX compliance, but also from the point of view of managing any kind of enterprise risks when it comes to managing simple things like workflow approvals, trying to ensure there is a maker and checker within your organization being followed, or even if there is any kind of delineation of user roles and responsibilities within your organization. So it's one very important tool that most of the finance professionals, CFOs are looking at investing in a post-COVID world. Again, because of not wanting to keep risks within their organization, two, because they want to transfer the risks, and more importantly, they want to also ensure that they're actually compliant with any of the accounting guidelines that actually emanate in terms of accounting transactions. So in a nutshell, these are those four very important big bold moves that right now research reports are citing. Research reports are talking of where CFOs, CXOs are investing or should be investing in the next 1 year, so that they can actually look forward to ensure that when the next disruption happens, and we don't know when this is probably going to be around, maybe 2 years down the line, or maybe in 2022, at least for the next disruption, you are actually well prepared to ensure that you will be able to manage most of those issues that you faced during the COVID era. So with this, I just wanted to end my presentation. Thank you very much for being very, very patient, and thanks a lot. It's always a pleasure to present to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shobhaji and Lokendra, for sharing a so great insight on the transformation and acceleration path using technology. I think that's what the need of now, and most of the organization are looking forward to have some sort of resort towards this, because I believe technology definitely play an eminent role in today's transformation. And today, our eminent speakers and panelists will gonna share more insight that how they use the entire technology or other means, and what is the real transformation is all about. Not just only the technological transformation, but how the overall transformation work in organization. So we'll hear their perspective. And to introduce our panelists of the day today, I would ask again our executive committee member, C. Sangeeta Nahar, to do the honor, please.
Thank you, Anurag. So moving forward on the next panel discussion, I'm going to start with our own member, C.A. Ramanath Vaidyanathan. Mr. Ramanathan is the Chief Financial Officer of Union Insurance Company, a very familiar face at the chapter, and I have really enjoyed my interactions with Mr. Ramanathan. Apart from the CA, is also an associate member of the Chartered Insurance Institute London and fellow member of the Insurance Institute of India. He has 35 years of experience, majorly in the insurance industry. He has started his career with the New India Assurance Company Limited India, and the career path covers various prestigious organizations in India and the Gulf region. Currently, he is the CFO of Union Insurance Company, and previously he's worked as a group director with Al Habtoor Group, Chief Financial Officer with Al Futtaim Willis Company, and Executive Vice President with Oman Insurance Company, Dubai. I'm sure we're going to enjoy listening to him. I'll then move on to Rajiv Kakar, who was the founder and former MD and CEO of Dunia Finance. Rajiv Kakar is an industry veteran based in Dubai, seasoned banker, serial business founder, board member on global bank boards, an entrepreneur, public speaker, thought leader with over 3 decades of experience in financial services across various countries and geographies. As a banking industry veteran, he has operated large banks, financial institutions, successfully realigned banking businesses, executed multi-country business strategies, led acquisitions, transformations, founder of multiple greenfield financial services, business and institutions. So with Rajiv Kakar, you see he has experience over industries, over the banking business, and over various geographies. He is the global co-founder of Fullerton Financial Holdings, which actually operates and holds, which is an operating and holding company that acquires, creates, and operates banks, financial institutions across 12 plus countries. It was here that he was the founder, managing director, and CEO of Dunia Finance, which is a Fullerton subsidiary in the UAE. Prior to Fullerton Financial, Rajiv Kakar has worked at Citibank for 2 decades and across various geographies. He's a seasoned board member and has served on several boards across the world. He also has a deep personal passion for education and also serves since 2009 as a member of the Global Advisory Board of the prestigious University of Chicago Booth School of Business, and also a member of the Industry Advisory Board of the SP Jain School of Global Management since 2011. Rajiv Kakar has done his MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. He has also graduated from mechanical engineering, and he's academically ranked #1 in his graduating batch. So there you have Rajiv Kakar, and then we have Anshul Srivasa, who's a global chief information officer and chief digital officer. He drives technology transformation through thought leadership, design thinking, innovation, analytics, and delivering value to stakeholders. He's a global technology leader and change practitioner who has been instrumental in driving technology transformations for businesses in the range of multi-billion USD as revenues. He's an alumni of IIM Bangalore and has been instrumental in incubation of startups all over the world. He's a keynote speaker on blockchain, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine and deep learning, digital transformation, fintech, insurance tech, cloud and mobility. And that's Anshul for you, members. Over to you, Anurag.
Thank you, Sangeeta, for sharing the insights. And now I would like to ask our dynamic executive committee member, CA Jaiprakash Agrawal, to be the moderator along with me on the panel today, and Mr. Rahul Mishra as well. Thank you, Mr. Rahul. So as we talk about the transformation, I think all of you have lived through the entire journey of this transformation into the organization that you have served and currently nurturing those organizations. I would like to first go back to Mr. Rajiv Kakar, that when you look into the transformation, what is the first thing that comes to your mind, and how do you look the transformation as a threat to your organization or as an opportunity into your organization?
Well, firstly, I guess thanks for having me here. I listened with keen interest at all the speeches, all the pieces, and all very interesting. Transformation, change, incumbency, insurgency, these are things which, unfortunately, there is no new normal. There's always a new normal. So whatever you're going through today is now passé, and we will see something very different. It's always fashionable to talk about some of these things when the event has happened. And today, when I'm going to be a little facetious here, but I find it very strange when people talk about data being important today. Data was important in 2005, 2006, 2007. My businesses had business cases written in Darden about being on data and making data-driven decisions. I think we have to understand that a lot in the world has happened because of certain changes. And transformation is going to be irregular. For transformation, it's not technology that is needed. Technology is a means. But I think several things are needed. It's a culture. It's the kind of purpose you define for yourself. It's very, very important. And I think the other thing is you have to have a culture that defines the value proposition. Now, what transformation does is really helps you accelerate or redesign what you're doing. Anything when we talk about digitization is only changing what you're doing, incrementalism. Transformation is exponentially changing you. That's the concept of transformation. So we should all be very careful that we don't end up confusing ourselves between digitization and transformation. Otherwise, you're serving as it's a self-serving statement. So essentially, having a common purpose and deciding what you want to do is what drives and aligning people is what redefines your playing field and also reshapes your value proposition. I'll give you a very good example. Today, we're all talking about Tesla, but people used to laugh Elon Musk out of the room when he talked about smart mobility years ago. Today, he's worth 200 billion, but he's talking about intergalactic travel. And I'm telling you, it sounds incredulous, but in a few years from now, it will be something that will be happening. So the designers, thinkers, and people who transform your thought process leads to engineers designing for it, and then managers commercializing and taking it forward. So we are not in an era of change today. These decades are not weeks. I think always weeks have been decades. We've always had rapid change. It's just that the quantum of change comes in only when we realize it hits us on a posterior, when we realize that we've just been sitting pretty and haven't taken action very fast. So stimulus has been staying for a long time. Similarly, disruption, mobility. I would say, please look at the next element in terms of longevity. Today we're talking about greening because it's a passé function, but we are now talking about gig, impact, inclusion, and longevity. So I would urge the community here to be forward-looking and let's not be backward-looking. What has happened is now the rearview mirror. We need to catch up. This is all catch up. Everything we've heard today is catch up. What is going to happen in future? So the important skill we need to figure out is how do we start becoming slightly more forward-looking and perceptive and building a culture which can be enabled by technology, but building culture and talent. Every time we created something new, the only two things I put on a slide, talent and culture. Because if you have the right people, you can disrupt the status quo. You can have all the technology in the world, it means nothing.
Perfect, Rajiv. My next question is to Mr. Ramanathan. Rajiv has put it correctly that culture is the first part which we have to concentrate on. My question is, why culture always comes when something like pandemic, like this, something uncertain happens? Because if culture is to be there, it has to come from core, from inside. Like Ellen, it is coming from core. I mean, he is thinking about futuristic and it's coming from core. But that section of population is very less. Organization as a whole across the world only realizes that yes, we have to fast forward, we have to transform fast only when pandemic like this happens. So sir, why it's always a reactive approach from business community and not proactive, so that instead of hitting the pandemic, we have already achieved it and we say no, we are on the right track. What stops us? What stops the business organizations?
Okay, thank you. And first of all, let me thank every one of you to invite me here. This is my first interaction on the podium. So to say thank you, C.A. Sangeeta Nahar, for a good introduction. Thank you so much. Jay, it's a wonderful question. I would say an important question, why we always look back. Just a little takeaway, the thing is we are never a forward-looking people. See, first and foremost, businesses, most of the cases, if you look at it, it's all reactive. And I would say there are only a very few visionaries. Sometimes, one of the examples of great visionaries are the place where we are now living. Who thought about 20 or 30, 40 years ago, this city will be so thriving, this area will be thriving? The founding fathers had that vision. So the vision comes from very few leaders who have real vision. Everybody else is only catching up. And more so, like Mr. Rajiv Kakar said, something hits you hard, then you start seeing at the rear view mirror what has hit you back and try to look at the road ahead. See, the thing is, this is a fact of life. But however, from an insurance industry perspective where I come from, see, transformation has always been there. If you look at 50 years back, how the insurance industry was transacting to today and how we have survived this pandemic and everything, it's part of the transformation process which has been evolution has been always there. If you look at it, insurance is one of the oldest industries, 1600s, 1500s, we have the history. So every time an incident happens, the new things come up. For example, just going back in history, the Great Fire of London gave rise to what you call the fire insurance, as an example. So everything happens. Now the cyber crime and the satellite insurances are there because the technology has moved and we are all digitalized, so to say. So the criminals are also there behind us in the same fashion. So we need to be up to date and, to take insurance. Again, insurance is again like the banking to some extent. We are dependent on capacity building across the globe. We are not isolated or we are not working in silos. No company in insurance can say that we are working in a silo, that we are self-sufficient. You take risk beyond your capacity and spread it across. So for this, you need complete trust. And most of the relationship in insurance, the reinsurance contracts run for many years. So there we go for the longevity. So in terms of times, when you have seen many crises and you have gone through the decades of, turbulence, a sense of well-being and trust comes between your partners. When that is there in place, naturally you have this longevity and a support. And again, insurance is something called utmost good faith. So each one of us trust each other perfectly. So, and like Rajiv said, see, data has been there always, and insurance industry depends only on data. How do you rate a risk? How do you see what is the profitability we should have? Everything comes through the data management, your claims experience ratios. I think even Anshul can also vouch for it, but he was our previous colleague, he knows how much we struggle to get the data in place to ensure that every year we have the renewals of our treaties and all. The data plays a key role in our renewal rates and discounts and commissions, whatever the earnings. This is all the bread and butter. So to go back to your question, basically, we have to always understand that we have to understand that we are not exactly the visionaries. So every time the pandemic comes, something comes, what happens is your inherent strength comes out, which is always dormant to a large extent. This is where your culture of the organization, your relationship, longevity of even the team members helps you a lot. I hope I have answered you to some extent.
Yes, sir. Perfect. To some extent, yes. I mean, I agree that yes, we are reactors. We react. I go to Anshul. I see him very comfortable there. And Anshul, I heard Rajiv, I heard Ramanathan. They talk about transformation, and they say yes. I mean, we have the data, and that is something which data is something which was existing always, right? Data is something new oil which we are hearing. You are the CIO. What do you think? I mean, now data is data, right? It becomes information. You have to churn the data. When we have the data for so long, so many years now, and so much data is there always, why it is taking time for companies or fintech companies to come up with good analytics which can help organizations to grow faster and understand where they need to put their money? Where exactly the lack is if data is always available? Anshul, you are on mute.
Well, let me thank you for inviting me for such a powerful session on the transformation and so-called digital migration of various businesses. But yeah, going back to your question on what has gone wrong with the data. Data has always been there. It was the talent to look at the data at a 360-degree view. Data has always been viewed as in a biased form. See, if I give you an example, a sales guy will show the figures, what is preferential to the sales guy. So data has been existent, but in a very, very biased form. And that's where, if you want to actually do a good amount of analysis on data, leave the data and let the data learn and give you a proper, and that's where cognitive technologies have taken a shape and existence. But if you look at it, we always had data, but again, we always waited for disasters to happen, like the disaster which happened recently, the COVID, say. So we were not prepared for it. Our businesses were not prepared for it. Then what happens? All that data gets whatever was the business continuity, the way we want to operate. Data couldn't do much on that because you were not prepared for it. You never thought that, but definitely there was supposed to be a pandemic or some kind of a collapse which was supposed to happen, and it happened now. May happen in 10 years. I mean, I'll give you a classic example. No matter best of the cognitive technologies or artificial intelligence we have, nobody could predict COVID because it was always hidden in such a way that it was not being profoundly exposed out. So, I mean, it's just not about data, but it's more about the pointers which Rajiv talked about. It's about culture to nurture data. See, data should be responsibility of the last mile employee of the organization. So culture has to be data culture. If you drive data culture, you will get data culture and you'll get real value of the data. So Rajiv did a very beautiful sum up of his talk in like culture and talent. Now, culture has a hidden or an embedded element called talent. If you're not hiring, you don't have a right data to acquire right talents. So you go about hiring the talents which are more of people who are workers rather than analytics, the analytics guys who analyze things, who are analytical in their way of working. They just come on board and they do what they are supposed to do, or they follow a process guideline, SOP or whatever. So they become part of this process and they continue to do that over the years. So yeah, data has been there, but there were no real culture to create the data or create a framework of the culture to have data going to the last mile employee of the organization so that
Perfect.
everyone should respect data.
Perfect. I have an interesting question here, but before I go with that question, Anurag, you have a question. I can see in your face. Go ahead and ask your question.
See, the thing is, Anshul, I mean, thank you very much for saying about the data modeling and thinking about how people should prepare. I mean, we have Rahul with us, and Rahul, you tell us like, the critical point that you have seen within the lot of organization that you interacted with, that what kind of challenges that they face. I mean, what is the starting point for this entire digital driven transformation or transformation as a whole that you have witnessed? I mean, if you can summarize that in three key takeaways with respect to this data transformation, then it will help our members to understand more.
Thank you, Anurag. First of all, good evening to all of you. for the opportunity. And it's an amazing, it's privilege to be again, among this august company today. To your point, Atul talked about it, Rajiv talked about it, and other members talked about it in different. It's about staying relevant. Pandemic or no pandemic, prior to pandemic, you had the region challenges, if you were to take the context here, and so on and so forth. So it's all about, staying relevant today for tomorrow. You don't invest in your yesterday, you invest in your tomorrow, today. So the actions you need to take, irrespective as an individual or as a corporate, is about staying relevant to the context that we are, for the purpose that you're out there. A lot has been talked about, and the technology pieces are purely a means to the end. That's also been referred here, and that's how it should be. It's what I have seen over the past 10, 12 months, talking to customers, partners, different levels, is that pandemic was just one more, it just came as one more uncertainty that we live with. It's always been there, whether the price of the 30s, the 50s, the 80s, the 90s, and in the region, what we saw happening, it did happen. Financial crisis in the 2008 and so on and so forth. We have to build a culture within an organization that allows us to be agile, truly agile. So that we're resilient. You can take the change, be resilient to the change that is continuously going to come our way. You have the ability to create the business models that will allow us to sustain and keep moving forward. We always talk about, you can't just stop dead. The show must go on. You need to keep moving forward. So it's very important to create that agility within the organization in a true sense. What does it really mean? It means, again, a culture has been talked about. A growth mindset needs to come in place. And then for that, you need to have the right skill set, the people to bring on forth. Adaptation to change is not just now or today. It's a continuous process. We talk about innovation, but what is innovation? It's just, embracing the change that comes in different aspects, in different facets of our life, whether technology, whether business, whether relationships, and so on and so forth. That's what it is. You have to continuously keep embracing it, look at the positives, and keep moving, embrace that change and keep moving forward. Now, from an organizational perspective, I'm going to just simply say, do not invest in yesterday. Invest in your tomorrow today. So you've got to take the tools and the technology, the means that have been talked about, invest in it. Take the baby steps. You don't need to boil the ocean. Take the areas that are actually impacting you the most and start working on them, but move forward. Those organizations in the region who were preparing, who were moving in that direction, have been able to withstand, Shobha talked about the McKinsey's, the survival, the growth, and the phrase that is in. It's really true. I am sure in this August company that we have of 200 plus attendees today, we can reflect and say, I know of such organizations, perhaps mine and many others, who had moved into the journey. So you continue to make the changes, and you're right, Rajiv. Transformation is exponential, depending on where the baseline is. If you're already on that journey, you're making the changes incrementally, and you continue to move forward. You continue to embrace the innovation, the changes. It's not exponential. It depends where you are. If you've been standing still for too long, then yes, Atul talked about, you don't want to be a Nokia or an HMT or an ambassador, correct? For the dollar that you have today, you don't invest in the past. So that's pretty much what I would say here. Be agile, continuously absorb as much as you can, keep moving forward with innovation, the changes that are coming in, and invest in the right areas that are relevant to you on technology and tool sets.
That's really outstanding. I mean, this is a trend. I mean, these are the trends which is like prevailing in the industry today. And I think businesses need that adaptation. They really need that thought process built in within the organization, within the people. I mean, often I've seen that people say that, okay, look, you should do this change. But often people did not realize the change that they need to bring in within themselves. I often see that, one of the key instrumental thing which is in transformation required is is a self-realization within ourselves, that how much change that we ourselves invite in order to make that bigger impact. Now, before I go a little further, one of our executive committee members here, Rajiv, he has a very interesting question to ask to Mr. Rajiv Kakar. So I'm just adding his, over to you, Rajiv.
Thank you, Anurag. I think everyone has given a lot of good views, so I'll stick to Mr. Rajiv Kakar, because one is we resonate the same name, so and maybe the profession also. You said very clearly and very appropriately that we beat the bush only when the snake has moved out. So that's a challenge or transformation we keep talking about. We're talking about changes, but when we really look at the meaning of transformation, it's a complete change is what we are talking about. And I'll not name out because of various reasons, but we have heard some business people from the various countries. They say that if you follow the regulator, you can only follow the norms. But if you do what the regulator is not even thinking of, that's where the breaking happens. And as we see right now, there are a lot of things happening in the banking world, especially on the crypto side, if you talk about, which is a not known factor. So if you look at a transformation, do the banks still are going to exist after maybe 3 or 4 years?
So I think this is an extremely good question. Personally, and I'm actually on YouTube on this because I've said this before, banks really eventually will increasingly have to hyperscale themselves, and which is why you're seeing consolidation. And eventually, should a cryptocurrency ever become a fiat currency, now I'm talking about a fiat currency, which means regulated currency, then technically there is really no need for banks, and you can actually, through the right technology, you can actually have a trust-based system, and you can deal with each other, and the central banks of respective countries will serve as the exchange mechanism. Will that happen? I think it definitely will. Does it need to happen? There are reasons very different from taking away banks. And, by the way, what I say for banks is going to happen even in other industries. And if you give me a minute, firstly, remember the trend that happened many years ago, especially after 2008 and also in 2001, etc. Every time there's been a problem, regulators have thrown stimulus behind. Now, stimulus is now like candy, which cannot be pulled out. Every time, even Bernanke tried to pull it out in 2013, or in came Janet Yellen tried to do it in 2013 and 2018, Janet Yellen. It didn't work. Market's not willing to accept it. If all your life you lived on candy, try pulling candy away and you'll have a depression. So one thing for sure, that stimulus will remain. And I've been saying this since 2012. And when stimulus remains, you must realize that eventually we're reaching a stage where interest rates are going to be, we're in a very long period of slow growth. And if you're in a long period of slow growth, interest rates can only be depressed up to a point. This time around, when we had the crisis in COVID, in 17 days, the regulators unleashed everything that took months for them to do in the 2008 crisis. Whether it was quantitative easing, interest rate guidance, interest rate reduction, and everything else, swap lines, and everything else that was done. Now, if that is the criteria they're going to use again next time, every time you do that, the traction that you get, the benefit that you transmit out of it is getting progressively lower. Eventually, we are going to move into interest rates which are negative, which we've already started seeing in Europe. And for that to happen, and to make sure that people don't start keeping physical cash or don't move it to alternates like Bitcoin, now that transaction you have to start looking at correlating. Many of these sound bizarre. I personally, but I think this is leading to whether it's Bitcoin, stablecoin, iCoin, or whatever comes in, there will come a time where cryptocurrencies will have to survive, because digital currency, fiat, will lead to negative interest rates. That's the only hope. Otherwise, people will keep physical cash in vaults or keep it under their bed. Final thing I want to say, all industries and banks especially have to unbundle. And when technology comes in or technologists or fintechs come in as insurgents, right? They're like the termite that comes in. They have learned your business models because historically all businesses have given their businesses to them. So big tech has actually got businesses and made systems for technology, just like the developed markets had it from emerging markets. They have learned the business. And now you're getting neo banks, you're getting open banking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So unbundling of banks is leading to back offices getting hyperscale, whether it's a retail business, whether it's Amazon, whether it's anything else. And network-based businesses will start becoming monopolistic on the other side. As they get unbundled, anything which is high customer impact and low level of standardization, which is structuring, credits, processes, intellectual capital, or relational capital. So, we talked about wisdom in the first presentation. That becomes proprietary. But anything which is data entry, managing systems, data centers, these need to now become consolidated, hyperscaled, and move into infrastructure and railroads. So you are going to see regulation as a structure. As a service. You're going to see compliance as a service. You'll see software as a service. You've been seeing it, etc. But if there are 2-3 things I would focus on going forward, and as I said, longevity, because I think it's important, but compliance, integrity, these are going to have such elements of who gets capital, who doesn't. You're seeing Larry Fink and his BlackRock model. What is happening? ESG is not a fad. ESG, by the way, I printed my first sustainability report in the Middle East in 2009, and every year I was doing sustainability for years. So when people talk about ESG today as a new fad, it surprises me. It's what matters is integrity cannot be compromised any further. Regulators have to be respected, but regulators sets the minimum norm. You have to decide your higher norm. What is you have to be better than norm. It's like what we are taught at home. So companies that perform well will get better multiples. Companies that will be relevant and closest to the client and be customer-centric and own relational capital and intellectual capital will make sense. Anything which is rule-based needs to go down to hyperscaled entities, which are going to be taken over by the big techs or taken over by the specialists. And so we must all look at our businesses and start segregating our businesses and unbundling. Otherwise, we'll be dinosaurs who will be killed if we don't unbundle ourselves. So banks are very much in it. New banks are already happening, and regulators are already setting up regulations. Open banking is there everywhere, and it's a matter of time that banks will lose their advantage. Or even if they stay, remember, the economic returns will be taken away by the frontline defenses, and the normal profit will remain. So we have CAs on this line. If you only earn normal profit and don't make the economic return on economic capital, you're not creating value. It ain't happening. So,
Thanks, Rajiv. Just one maybe leading point on this. So as you rightly pointed out, the factors on the banking side, I think in the global world, if we see, the biggest issues are two. One is multiple currencies and multiple taxation. So if the transformation happens with a single currency globally, it's by default happening. I think regulators are also losing a grip on that somewhere in some fashion. And the global single taxation.
I don't think you'll have a single currency. You may have cryptocurrency, but currencies will remain country specific. I'm worried. I think money markets are going to divide. I think there'll be a China market, so capital market will no longer be the preserve of the US. I'm worried about neutrality of the internet. I'm worried about internet starting to get governed. Please remember, there are 3 pillars in any community. There's business, there's government. If businesses become very large, like Jack Ma happened recently, you get slammed on the wrist. We saw that in Bill Gates in Europe many years ago when there was the antitrust movement. There's digital tax hitting Google. So behavior is what I was talking about, is very important. Arbitrage will always exist. Countries will always defend their arbitrage, whether it's tax or it's other benefits that they will get. And for that, there will be treaties. For that, there will be sanctions. For that, there will be new alliances. Unfortunately, if we did not have politics and we did not have borders, then frankly, technology would rule the world. But that's how you start protecting it. And the third pillar is civil society, and which is us. I think we have a responsibility. And today, social media has weaponized information sharing and the speed at which it can share to such an extent that not only can it be used negatively to affect you through fake media, but on the other side has given a lot of power to people, like you're seeing with the farmers, good or bad, which can take governments down and can look at it. So I think we have 3 convergent forces working together. We as business people have to be very smart and look forward and make sure that you handle it well. So many CEOs have toppled. Wells Fargo CEO toppled. You saw what happened in the BP oil spill. He went sailing, poor guy, and it happened. How you're behaving, how you're talking is going to be measured. And a little action, like you saw Ted Cruz right now walk away from Dallas in the middle of the Texas storm. He just went for a holiday to Mexico. He's been beaten up. He had to come back in a half. So you're being watched. And so companies are being watched. And which is why I keep coming back to your purpose, your culture, and your talent. Invest today on talent. Do not optimize. Last line I do want to say, and I said this when the last time I spoke to ICAI. The accounting profession capitalizes systems, desks, and furniture, but expenses the salary cost of the true capital in a company, which is the human capital. So the fact that we expense salaries and we capitalize desks and doors and premises is the first problem of how we, now I'm not talking about accounting, about how we recognize the value of talent. Talent is the true capital. So whether you account for it one way or the other, do not lose your people. Constantly create them, upskill them if you can. Otherwise, in the modern world, it's no longer reskilling. It's upskilling if they are upskillable. Otherwise, hire. You have to be ruthless and get the best person to do so. And the others, gig and inclusion will take care of the rest.
Thanks, Rajiv.
Thank you, Rajiv.
Results are gone exponentially with all the companies. So thank you very much. I think this is an amazing answer, and I'm done with the seminar even. Anurag, back to you.
Thank you, Rajiv, and such a great insight. Now, Shobha has a very interesting question, on the transformation. Yeah, Shobha, go ahead.
Yeah, so actually, this is a question which I would like to ask all the four panelists because all are coming from different fields, right? What is the advice, especially in this current pandemic times, right? We all are talking about upskilling, we all are talking about to stay relevant, and we are talking about business transformation. But you all are leaders in your own field. What is the advice you would like to give all the fellow members, the finance executives, what they should be doing now? Sriram, start with you.
Thank you. It's an interesting question. It has a very deep, you have asked a very deep question actually. But again, simple steps can be taken. From my perspective, my industry perspective, I'm telling you, I am not as eloquent as the others because the industry is a little specific. I would say transformation has always been there. That is, it's a passé now. We have to accept that we are in the times of change, and change is permanent. And longevity, yes. And this insurance industry, at least we have seen, is that we try to nurture our own talent in terms of specialization in different area, and also the turnover in our human capital is, I would say, it's moderate or even low compared to many other hyperactive industries. So that takes care of our sustainability actually. But today's terms, in real terms, I would say, look at your own organization. Look at where you are, what stage of development you are. See, every organization has different levels of in their journey, in their curve, where they are. And what is the support they get from the shareholders, your own board, and how much is your resource constraint, or what are the things you have. See, all this will make you understand your position, and accordingly, like the best fit, you have to fit yourself in the right slot and try to transform or sustain or even survive that particular phase. So I would say that today, look at how are you going to conserve. Conserve means conserve your resources, conserve your human talent, conserve your cash resources. And again, today's economic world is not even. See, we are all in some industry. We are all dependent on the industry which is very unorganized or little less organized. And everybody faces a cash crunch. The receivables becomes the biggest problem. Once your cash flow is affected, basically, then where are you going to conserve? You have your payables, you need to pay off. But on the other hand, you need to collect. See, this management, working capital management is also going to be extremely stressful, and it has been a stressful last couple of months. But thankfully, since you have been in the market for a long time, you have your partners, you can also reschedule your arrangement with your creditors so that ultimately you can survive. So I would say that conservation and ensuring that understanding your situation and accordingly plan for your conservation, survival, and also transformation, and take the next steps for the new opportunities. This is what I would say. Thank you.
That's interesting. That's interesting to look into that. Conservation of the talent and the resources is critical for survival. Anshul, what's your view on this? Short, if you can just shortly summarize from an information technology perspective. Yeah.
it's not about information technology perspective, Anurag, but I would, if I have to put it in a way that if you actually want to change, you have to split the organization. You cannot run traditional organization and inject digital talents coming in, because DNA of those talent is completely different. And that's how the digital born companies have done it. If you look at the traditional organization name, I mean, I posed a question to the entire lot here of 168 people in the audience, that name any traditional organization which has been transformed as a digital organization, and I can bet on it nobody would be having an answer to it. Traditional organization cannot be transformed as a digital organization. You have to have a separate DNA. Set of folks should be different, and this is where the talent mismatches are there. Traditional people who come in from a typical traditional world, if they get some leads into transforming themselves as digital talents, I have my doubts. They get pulled back into their operations on a daily basis, and they continue to do the same what they've been doing, and they just actually transform a process or transform, I mean, they launch a website and they call they are digitally transformed, and that's not digital transformation. So I mean, if you look at it, conservation of a talent is one thing, but getting a talent and creation of a talent is another thing. So you in this age, you have to actually split your skill sets, and splitting of skill sets can only come in when you actually, I mean, a CA cannot be a CA for life. I mean, for life from now on. I mean, I mean to say, I mean, you have to start thinking the way your organization is going to run. You cannot just be in numbers. You have to come out of it and see what's happening in other areas. You have to see how digital organizations are operating out of. I mean, you have to actually figure out the way you are going to, you need to have a target operating model to run as a digital organization. So conserving talent would be good idea. Retaining talent is a good idea, but I don't know where it will lead you. If you are not going to create an environment which is more innovative or disruptive, those talent are going to leave you. They're not going to stick around. So I mean, that's my thought. And I mean, recently you've seen that Airtel splitted their organization as a separate digital organization, which is, I've been talking for years on this. I mean, in various forums, that don't run a traditional organization and think of converting into a digital organization. Split that organization and make a separate digital, because DNA of the people are totally different.
So you need to say that, today the organization need to, when the talent, when there's a great talent available, the talent will stick around the organization, which creates more opportunities for them to exploit the right talent, you mean to say. So talent is,
why will talent stick around? I mean, if see, your ecosystem will not nurture that kind of stuff, the talent will not stick around.
Absolutely. So Rahul, if I come back to you on this particular question, that when we talk about the talent, when we talk about the longevity, when we talk about looking into the finances of the business to in this stressful situation to manage, what's your view? What's your experience in that? What's the advice that you would like to pass on to our members?
Rahul, you are speaking on mute.
Sorry about that. I think I'm going to echo some of the points earlier made here by the panelists. We talked about the culture, we talked about the growth mindset, we talked about the fact that change is here, it is continuous process. The recent pandemic is just like a catalyst which has woken us up to the reality. We keep talking about the new norm. The norm is here. It's going to continue to evolve. So what do we do? Again, leverage tools. Be more proactive. Finance is a very, very important function within the business organization or the ecosystems that we operate in. So scenario building, planning is very, very important. Make sure that you continue to look at that. Realign your plans. Continue to be across the organization. It cannot be a siloed approach that one part of the business is looking at things, and that goes down again to the culture. It has to be across the organization. Create a momentum that stays together. And a very important point that's been made out by Rajiv, Anshul, and his people. Your biggest asset is actually human capital. You know, one of the things I noticed is the fact that when this pandemic came in, we had to go and work remotely. Large organizations like Oracle and everybody, we always had embraced this culture to work remotely, run our businesses. But when it came to it, the simple issue of trust came in. When our employees went down to work remotely and they were not, all sitting together in an office, and the fact that there was an issue of trust whether they were actually working the 9 to 5 hours that usually do there. And so it's very, very important to have a culture in the organization that imbibes trust and empathy, and a culture which says that, I'm going to invest in you. I'm going to invest in the means to help you keep moving forward. Empower your current capital to help you, make the decisions and so on and so forth. So the focus on people is very important, whether they are your own employees, whether they are your stakeholders, whether they are, part of the supply or the ecosystem around you. It has to be a collective, effort out there to embrace that and keep moving forward. Is just kind of saying what every member out here has talked about. It's really accepting it and saying, I am going to be the change. I will help and drive this change and keep moving.
Thank you, Rahul. Now I just want to
Anurag, one thing. I mean, one thing which I have received from one member as well, and here I will lead the view. All three were very consistent in terms of focusing on human capital management. And one of the young chartermen just dropped a message, and this question goes to Rajiv, along with what his views is, whether he also focuses on human capital management only as the per se, because this is coming from a young chartered accountant. He says, the way digital transformations are happening across the globe, do you think there is a threat for young generation in getting job in future? Because obviously the jobs will shrink. If 10 people were required to work earlier, digital transformation, other things may shrink the job. So do you think as young chartered accountants or young generation, there are threats of losing job? Or do you think no, the moment transformation comes, new things will open up, new skill sets will be required, and they will have ample opportunity? Your thoughts on same?
No, I think I don't agree that people are not going to have opportunities. In fact, the young people, whether you're young or old, I tend to not make a distinction between age, because I think what matters is talented people. So as long as the youngsters who come in are truly talented, are focused, energetic, I don't like passion, I like grit. Do they have the ability to be creative and execute what they want to do and have high levels of integrity? There'll be a lot of need. If I really look at it, if you look at the vulnerable section, I think in the corporate world today, what is vulnerable are people in the mid-30s to the early 50s, because given the stage of life, they are, they've already got some fixed ideas. They're finding it relatively difficult to change. So somebody talked about adaptability. Learn to adapt. Be constantly reinventing yourself. If you're constantly reinventing yourself, you can move across industries, move across geographies. You can work with different people, different cultures. You will naturally learn it. The company I started work with 20 years. I moved 11, 12 times around the world. We were just moved like expats. And when we did, we just learned cultures. We learned how to work. We learned how to fail. It's so important to learn how to fail. When I interview someone and they tell me they've never failed, I never hire the person. And the question is, you've got to have the humility to know that there's stuff you don't know. You've got to know how you've got to have a particular specialty, which is a specialty that's good for you, but you learn to complement it with other specialists and become a matrix where you can together form a strong mosaic. Now, no longer is there a time for rounded stones and generalists and I'm good for everything, because nobody needs that. A lot of the specialized functions are going to get automated with bionic workforces, whether it's whatever we've talked about. But I think what is needed is the ability to conceptualize. And what's needed is the ability to interact well, which is the human capital. So 3 levels of very simple skills. Technical, don't obsess with it. It's needed. It's like what I call the Maslow's basic hygiene factors. Then come the motivators. It's the human skills and the conceptual skills. What do you do with your skills? And so I think in the beginning, somebody said we are reactive. If we are reactive, we should really check ourselves. We cannot be reactive. In fact, even today's crisis and its definition will not define what is going to come ahead. This is catch up now. And if you look at what happened in the 2008 crisis, it actually made a distinction between industries. Banking, financial services went to the bottom and others went up. It was a big lack of governance, etc., that happened. I was part of that process, right? And we were doing it. What has happened in 2020? It's a health crisis. It has actually made the better, in all sectors, the better performers move up and the ones who have lagged and were not ready. Remember, all these changes you're talking about today, whether it is tools like robotic process automation or data analytics, are a decade and a half ago old. They are not new. Cryptocurrency was detected, the blockchain technology is in the 90s. I'm an engineer, and we used to talk about it in IITs, etc. in our time. The question is, how do you mass produce it and how do you mass accept it? The other thing is, youngsters should always be the ones who, when a distortion happens, like an earthquake, this is the best way to redistribute opportunities. Earthquake redistributes. I mean, it causes some loss, but it redistributes water and snow and everything and makes certain areas that didn't get it later. So every crisis is an opportunity if you're ready. Every crisis is a disaster if you're a dinosaur. So for the youngsters, whether you're young or old, I would not bother. I would be prepared. And I can only say at every stage of my life, I try to prepare myself for the next. People don't read enough. People today read all their stuff in WhatsApp and have affected media. People use buzzwords which are affected by consultants. And consultants do their business right because they want to mind play you. Read different sources, make your own view. Decide what strength you want to have, but be distinct. You must have a spiky personality. You shouldn't have a well-rounded personality. You've got to be good at something and very good. There's no place for something which is not good. So I think youngsters, if I wish I was young, this is a very exciting world. What was difficult for us to do is so much easier to do because the means are easier. It's like the Moore's law. Everything doubles, things become easier, it becomes faster. But what is definitely needed is creativity, intelligence, compliance, integrity, ability to execute. And this is where I, as a CEO, have always focused 80% on my people, 20% on my customers. The next thing is customers. I didn't hear the word customer today all along. I think customers and your journey has to be customer centric, and then get into execution, etc. Shareholders come last, and my shareholders would tell me, "How can you say that?" And I said, "You come last. If I do all of the above four, you're definitely going to build value." Today, there's a reason why an HDFC bank gets 5 times book, and a different bank gets 1 time book. There is a different reason why some multiples, there's this company called Twilio, which gets 30 times earnings, and there is Vodafone globally, which doesn't even get 1 time. So the value. So the reason is how you build your models, how you create your value proposition, how you deliver it with the culture. Nothing changes. The basic service is just the same. It's just the means at which you're different. What matters is your creativity. So youngsters have a lot of hope because they have time. But time can be a negative if you don't have ability. Then you have to suffer this, because with this change, there is a massive growth of what they call the useless economy coming up. Because big techs will corner a lot of the work, governments will carry the other side, and a chunk of people are going to eventually, you will see the rise of universal basic income. Because a bunch of people will be just gaming and sitting and getting uselessly employed and getting paid on universal basic income. So try not to be a part of the useless economy, and that's knowledge. That's relational capital. That's intellectual capital. That's constant learning. That's all.
Thank you so much. What a crux of the question. I mean, the crux of the answer that you provided. I think this is like a great message for all the youngsters out here and all the people who are, age is not war for anybody. I mean, I believe it's a passion, it's ability, it's a self-belief that we need to see in ourselves, that, the kind of knowledge and kind of intellect that we all carry. So we have our Vice Chairman, C. Sundar Nurani, smiling. I would like to ask him to give the concluding remark on the session today. And thanks everybody. Over to you, Sundar Saab.
Yeah, amazing session. Thank you all the speakers. And I truly agree with Rajiv that among what you need to give priority is your own, people, because that is what is going to help. I don't know whether it is 80% or 90%. But I think anything about 75 to 85, probably you need to focus on your people, because that is what is going to give dynamics in whichever industry you are in. I want to thank Jai for putting all these speakers together and, putting time to formulate this session. Thank you, Jai, for excellent input. And I also thank all the speakers and all the panelists for sharing their ideas. And over to you, Anurag, for the concluding Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much. Jay, can you please share the certificate, please?
Sure, we will do that.
Thank you, Mr. Rajiv Kakar, for sharing.
Thank you, Rajiv.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, C. Ramanathan.
Ramanathan Saab, thank you.
Thank you,
Anshul
Mr.
Saab, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the
Mr.
committee.
Rahul.
Rahul, Shobha, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to ask our, our executive committee member, C. Manoj Agrawal, to do the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Anurag. It was a wonderful session and learning on how we all can accelerate ourselves towards transformation in 2021 and coming years. It's a really an amazing learning. It's good to learn from the panelists and speakers that with transformation, we will get more and more opportunities. And we are happy to hear, especially for finance professionals. And after pandemic, it's a must topic for our members. So on behalf of the chapter and its members, I would like to thank our keynote speaker, CA Atul Kumar Gupta, our speakers and panelists, CA Lokendra Rawat, Mr. Rajiv Kakar, Mr. Anshul Srivasa, CA Ramanathan Vendathan, Mr. Rahul Mishra, and Shobha Singh, and all our members for their passionate learning and participation. We are thankful to our sponsors, event partner Oracle, principal sponsors Danube Home, Tele, Shura, Lulu, platinum sponsors Century Financial, Kristen Menon, MMJS, IFCO, AGMC, CRIF, Clyde & Co. And our media partner Khalis Times, institutional partner Delhi Private School, and banking partner Bank of Baroda. Thank you very much, everyone, and hope to see you soon in next upcoming. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. So I'll unmute everybody now.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.